Not quite, still good morning. So joining Primo, we have Chris from Cisco, John from Yelp, and I also want to invite Steve back, I think from Motorola, because what was a fascinating conversation, I think has some questions potentially for the audience to ask. So Steve, come and join the panel as well. So this is your discussion. This is a chance for you to challenge 4 great workplace experts. So please think of some really great questions. But we had a fantastic dialogue, and I think just to kick it off, if I could ask John to introduce himself, and Chris, because you haven't yet been on stage.
Hi, John Lieu. I'm the Director of Facilities and Real Estate for Yelp. I've been there almost 5 years, so I've known Primo for a long time. He's done a lot of projects with me. Great company, Yelp. It's a lot of fun.
Thank you. And Chris.
Hi, Chris Henderson from North Carolina. I don't have too much of an accent. It's pretty much out of me by now, I think. I've been in California a dozen years or so. And I've been with Cisco about 18 years, starting in North Carolina, here a dozen years, as I said. And right now I'm leading the workplace resources team. We call it our corporate real estate team here in San Jose for the Bay Area Metro. Great top, as you can tell. Trying to change as we change our workplace.
Great. So do we have any questions from the audience to kick things off? Has anyone got a burning question? Yes, if you can we get a microphone down to the front? And
do I need one?
or you can be loud. I'll repeat the question, so go for it.
Jennifer Pratt, I'm an independent project manager consultant, mainly working in life sciences. My challenge lately has been mitigating sound conversations, sound, other work noise that people make as they work in these open floor plans. And folks that I have been working with, I'm striving to educate. They all want the high cubicle walls, which I just want to cry. But how do I show them a path toward conversational privacy amongst their close neighbors? And for scientists, particularly, who like to work in caves, engineers, bioinformaticists, the same. How do I give them the feeling of their cave without undoing the open, collaborative feel and environment that I'm striving for with my clients, particularly when I'm looking for flexible workspaces within the floor plate?
Okay.
I realize that was like 3 questions, but I figured I'd go for it.
But I think before we answer it, I think that you touched on a very interesting area, which is engineering talent. And I think we discussed this on the call this week, and this panel is obviously deeply rooted in engineers, in the workplaces that they provide. So let's focus on engineers, given that we're in the Valley. You know, what is the experience that you both got from the conversation we had, and also, Primo, the work you're doing at the moment with Cisco? So let's start with Chris.
Okay, well, we're just beginning to crack the whole engineering issue, I call it for me. We're doing a lot of G&A, general administrative office environments, and working through all that. We're actually, since Cisco bought Meraki about a year and a half ago, it was a less than $100 million a year business. Today it's $500 million, go to $1 billion a year. It's expanding. But our engineers in San Jose, which is the big 1,000-pound gorilla here, are going there to go see that Meraki environment. And they're saying, wow, we want this. So we're learning from that. Now, I will say we have delivered one environment very much like it. And the first email I got after 400 people moved on that floor from the VP leader was, Chris, I'm not sure we can work in this environment. And we had just spent $4 million on this floor, and that's all she wrote me in the email. And I'm like, oh no, what do I do next? But we waited. We said, be patient, work in the environment. And if you need more tools, if you need some desk dividers, we'll help with that. So I think that they knew we were going to work with them on finding some solutions, number one. 2 weeks later, I got another note from her saying, Chris, I think we can make this work. So part of that was certainly change management. You may ask, well, did you have change management? We had a little bit. Since it was engineering in our first attempt, engineering said, we will take care of the change management. And that means that they won't do any change management. So case in point, we're learning that as well. That we have to get involved in the change management and make sure that it's not just the leadership level, that there's people that we're listening to on the teams, right? They have to be a part of that design. And that's something we're learning, still learning right now, and largely thanks to O+A for getting involved in that. And we're now embarking with Primo and his team on a master plan for engineering. Now, we still have to get the funding and all that kind of stuff too, but we're going down the right path right now, and we think it's a pretty exciting path.
Chris, thank you. Let's just jump to Steve, because I mean, you mentioned in your mock-up in the cafeteria that you got engineers to kind of make the desks look real. Can you talk about that and what you did and how that was reacted to by others?
Sure. So for the engineers, we have hardware and software engineers, and different types of hardware engineers. We created. How's that better? So we try to create places to work. For example, we consolidated all these labs to 7 mega labs and trying to define where you do certain work. And then for the open environment, it has been a learning process. We've only been there maybe 5 months, but we've given the control back to the group. So in this neighborhood, for example, you have to really self-monitor. And overall, people learn how to work. You hush your voice, but there's always 1 or 2 people that they were just born different and they are really loud. And so throw stuff at them. Yeah. But I mean, you have to give control back to the people. And for one of our labs, they said, well, we want to have a conference room, a desk in the lab. And so I'm saying yes to everything because we're still experimenting. We're trying to personalize it. So now they have an open conference room in the lab with projectors on the wall. And so, our job was to really create a framework. And then, I mean, we trust these people to make the next great phone. And so it's like, we need you to kind of work through it. And it's been very healthy. It's trial and error. You're not going to get it perfect the first time.
Absolutely. Just a quick comment. So the average age in Meraki, I think, is like 26. Okay, they have no problem in the open environment. That's what they want. The average age in San Jose for engineering is going to be in the upper 40s. It was hitting low 50s, but we're hiring some younger folks now too, so it's come down to kind of the high 40s. So you got 4 generations in the workplace, which makes it extremely difficult to please on a campus environment every element of that generation. And that's what I think, to your point. Yeah, I'm saying yes to everything too, because I just want to be able to say, what is the outcome that you're looking for? And then we'll work on it together. And I think by doing that together, it helps with the ownership. Secondly, we also create sustaining management teams of the folks on that floor. They own their floor. And for example, just another quick learning, we thought we were doing great work in WPR by saying, hey, on every floor, we're going to take a room and make it a creativity zone. We're going to put some pinball machines in there. We're going to put a pool table and a couple relaxation chairs. They got used pretty good. But the engineering team came to us and said, Chris, we don't just want one room. We want the whole floor to be our innovation zone. I'm like, hit me like a rock in the head. Like, wow, you're right. What are we thinking? This whole floor is your innovation zone. They want to take, pedal go-karts and go down the hall with them. And I'm saying, and I'm cringing because I'm facilities by nature. I'm cringing at the maintenance and the damages, but I have to back off of that because the innovation, they're the ones that are creating the innovation for the future, not me. I'm spending the money for sure on these environments, but I've got to be able to back off and be comfortable with them owning their space. And that's a huge switch that we're not struggling with, I wouldn't say, but we're transitioning with right now at Cisco.
And John, you mentioned that you're in a high growth mode at the moment. Very, very dense environments, big challenge of growth. Do you want to explain what?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for the last 6 years, I've been a part of 2 companies that the CEOs were engineers, Mark Zuckerberg and then Jeremy. So it's a very engineering attitude, and I've always been a part of a very open environment. And at our new headquarters, because we're over so many floors, we have engineers on certain floors, and we have our salespeople on different floors. So they are a little bit siloed, but I think the interesting thing, and I agree with him about the generational gap. I think, the last 6 years I've realized that most people, when they get into the open environment, they realize how much more collaborative you really are with others. Even though you may be hearing other conversations or anything, but you're also hearing things that you probably wouldn't hear before. And I've noticed that people say, oh, you know what, I've been working on that, can I talk to you about it? So there's a lot more productivity and collaboration when you have an open environment. And people just feel they're of one synergy in my mind. You feel like a team. You don't feel individual anymore. And I think that's the big thing about the culture nowadays. I think they want to feel like a team, they want to feel productive, and they want to feel like they really just get to know each other even more so. And I think that's one of the big things why our space is the way it is. You know, our kitchen area is called All Hands Areas because we want all the salespeople, all the employees to come to that certain floor and to meet each other too, and to know what's going on in the company. So you want that synergy. It's a big thing for our culture right now.
You mentioned the term fraternity. Can you discuss it? You want to expand on that?
Yeah, you know, we were talking, and you know, you kind of feel like it is a little bit of a fraternity. You know, you feel like you know everybody understands what everybody's doing within the company, and whether you're in sales or whether you're in G&A or legal or anything else, you know, you just happen to always be associated with somebody walking by. If you're at the coffee shop at the barista, and everybody just seems to talk. You know, Jeremy comes down and he gets his coffee just like anybody else, and everybody just kind of gathers around him, and you just feel this connection. I think even more so with people. So.
Primo, you have a challenge in a high-rise building to create connections.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about the vertical campus, but also you're working with Chris's engineers to really work with them to design?
Sure. Just kind of as something to think about when you're trying to onboard the whole notion of change management, the easiest way we find is to include them early on. So it seems like an awesome task, and no one really wants to do that because you're going to get everybody chiming in. But at least if you can aggregate that information and make lists of what people's wants are, you could address them. At least they feel like they've been heard. So on the back end, when you're building, they felt like they're part of the process. And this is not just the first meeting. You're going to have to continue. And our firm is very open to make sure that happens, because we know what happens at the back end when they're not involved. They're going, well, I didn't authorize it. This is so the community right away will just start lashing back because they weren't included. So I feel that's a big part, and that's a big change, because it used to be decisions were made kind of in a strata that didn't include. Now you need to bring them all on board, and you can do all kinds of things. You use SurveyMonkey, you use Facebook. When we did Facebook, we actually used the Facebook application to get ideas and to run ideas by the entire company and hear back within seconds. This is good, this is not good. And it is nice when they can begin to embellish, because then you know they really enjoy being in this space and they're going to change it a little bit. But yeah, so the multi-generational thing, the way we try to address it, and I think it's not clear because open plan, a lot of people will just throw a lot of workstations into an old layout. So that means that old layout's probably going to have 2 conference rooms that are medium size, 1 large, and there's no phone booths, and then you cram 300 stations on it. Well, that's not going to work. So you need to make sure you have that variety. You have the lounge, you have the shelter, you have all these little spaces, ancillary spaces that are made available, and that's how you get it to work. And with the older engineers who do not want to sit out in the open plan with the young 20-year-old with his headphones on, you give them work pods, you give them spaces that they can do heads down work. That's what the library's for. That's what coding pods are for us. You can check them out, work on a project, work on a problem. You might have to go back to your regular workstation, but it gives an opportunity to have heads down work.
And I think what interests me is about how you get innovation, which came from the previous discussion we had. You know, you're actually designing with engineers. Chris, do you want to talk a bit about what you see the next stages? Because I think we discussed the idea that you can't just listen to what they want, because they may not know what they can have.
Absolutely.
And it's up to us as experts to kind of try and move forward the debate. What do you think's next?
And to help them. We're very lucky, although it's a bit political too, when you have, it's work, well, all right. How's it still okay? Is that all right? You know, we have 26 technology groups on this campus, and what may work well for one technology group doesn't mean it's going to work for all 26. And I think that's the other learning that we have. You know, we can't be so arrogant to think that this solution, we call it a kit of parts, this kit of parts works for you, we know it does, therefore you take it, and the rest of you take it as well, and you'll love it. And that doesn't work, because we've gone through that. We're very fortunate on this project right now that we're working on. We have a couple of engineers that are being tasked as kind of the visionaries for engineering. Now, that worries me a bit too, because I don't think they speak for all 26 technology groups either. So that's the piece where we have to come in and make sure, who are you speaking for and what group, et cetera. But we're actually doing design reviews along the way. We've already had a 50% design review. We have a 90% one coming up in a few weeks with those engineering teams, with those folks, to make sure we're all very clear on what the outcome will look like and what the outcome will be. But I think you have to customize it to some degree. My boss, who's in North Carolina, he likes to say you can have any color Model T you want as long as it's black. But I can't say, you can have any workstation you want as long as it's beige. I can't do that. So we're having to change that and realize there may be an additional cost. Maybe there's more stock you have to maintain, right? There's more different textures and colors and things that are being put into the workplace, more things to maintain, but it's a small cost. It really is a small cost when you're talking the innovation that these companies have to, like Cisco, have to put out. And the other thing is, as well, Cisco wants to make sure that we don't have problems with attrition, that we can attract the talent that the Googles and the Ubers are attracting as well. It's a tough market, and it's gotten a tougher market in the Bay Area for those of you that are here in the Bay Area. We have to compete, and we can't always buy that talent. We have to make sure we can also attract that talent. And new folks that come into the offices, and some of them at Cisco, and they look at the Cube Farm, and it's like, this place is dead. And you don't see engineers collaborating. Today, in Building 15, we see pods and groups of engineers actually talking to each other. And it's kind of cool to know that we were a part of that. And I think as long as we continue to pull them in on that, we'll be successful.
Do you have any other questions? Yeah, there's a question down here.
Hi, Toma Barilak with T3 Advisors. I tour spaces often, and you hear people say, oh, this was a collaboration zone that was designed, but nobody uses it. Or this was a standing area, but nobody uses it. And people vote basically with their feet. Talk a little bit about the concept in software development of fail fast as that relates to your design, and also post-occupancy. How do you continually keep a space functioning at its highest level if the original design didn't always pan out as intended?
Well, this is a great question. I think one of the when you see a failed idea, and we've had our load of failed ideas, you got to make change quickly. Hopefully, the facilities managers are kind of like there's a dialogue, and we can make that change. Optimally, what you want to do, everybody wants to innovate, and all these things are great ideas. They don't necessarily all get adopted, in that there's a number of reasons that they don't get adopted, but you do need to provide what I call this variety. You need to have these spaces available to them. And then there's a certain legibility of what the design intent is of that room that may not be totally clear. So maybe there's a little bit of explanation of this is how this space needs to be used. You never get like 100% activity in these spaces, because it's like a restaurant's hip one day and it's not hip. So working is the same way. You may want to work in the all hands area one day or a week or a month, but then you want to camp out in another area. I think when we strategize for these facilities, we don't know exactly where the aha moment's going to happen. All we can do is provide a backed up or a way to catch it or capture it. So if that means whiteboards down a hallway or connected through wireless or monitors, we need to make sure that we've got that close by, because you never know when you're going to want to work at a bar height table. So it's kind of the notion that it doesn't work. Well, if you set a camera on it and leave it on for 24 hours or for a week, you're going to find some people using it. So again, the spaces we do are very curated too. So if they don't feel like they were deliberately done and you just kind of half-assed it and just threw a high table there,
They make it work.
they make it work, but people are less inclined to use something that is very arbitrary, right?
I think the hard part is that there's always the hard part where you will never have the right combination of chill out rooms, open plans. You just never get it right, because it's never enough. There's never enough space. But I do realize that most people make it work. Like when we first moved into in September, most people started reutilizing the all hands space differently. They went down there and they were having meetings in there. They didn't realize that they could use it that way. But then all of a sudden now you see everybody doing one-on-ones or little group meetings near the barista now. So I think it evolves after they kind of get comfortable in what they can do and what they can't do. But I think most people adapt and they'll make it work without having to change everything. But ultimately, it's very difficult to get that right balance. I think that was the hardest thing for me.
And for us, I'd say that we have good bones, and so some of our spaces are already changed 3 times. So to have the ability to be flexible, it could be an office to a small conference room to a private, lab. As far as the open environment, I encourage our team, the workplace team, to go work on different floors for a day, like sit at the table and observe. Right, just watch to see how people use a space and say, well, how come no one's sitting here? And if you ask the questions and you sit and watch, you'll be amazed what you find out. And you'll say, oh, I didn't know that. Maybe it's a certain life cycle of the engineering product, of why they're not using this space. So I think just watch and listen and be ready to be flexible. It's working for us.
Can I give an example of what you're saying about speed of delivery, how critical that is? How many of you know the Agile methodology in engineering, or you're hearing a lot more about it, right? So let me tell you how I find out about it at Cisco, right? I find out that several engineering groups in a couple buildings have gone and spent $100,000 on IKEA furniture. So I have to stop that because they're not allowed to do that. But that doesn't just stop there, right? So what's going on? Why do you need that? And they're all excited because they just got out of Agile training and they want to create scrum rooms. They want the walls to come down, which is fantastic, but there's toolboxes and they're taking them down themselves. Right? And I'm like, guys, you got to stop. They said, well, yeah, but you guys, we come to you guys, you tell us you come to do it in 12 weeks. We can't wait 3 months for you to act. So we have to change, and we are, how our speed of delivery, right? We got to keep the right kind of stuff, work with them on what they need, and then keep that in stock. I got to respond in a week to 10 days just to make sure. Take advantage of that excitement. That's really cool. But I got to make sure I can deliver. I can't give them the 12-week. And that goes back, that's a call out to all of us, I think, including the partners, service providers, furniture folks that we work with. This 12-week stuff doesn't fly. So you've got to help me to get ahead of that. And how do I get ahead of that from a service perspective?
So does this mean that you're kind of ripping up the rule books? I mean, we had fantastic manuals, didn't we, about how to do this and how to roll it out globally. Are we ripping up that? Is it a do-it-yourself future? What do we think in terms of the corporates?
I hope it's not do-it-yourself. I think it's faster speed to deliver. It's also putting ownership back with the folks on that floor. I actually have engineers come to me saying, are we allowed to take pictures and have a contest and put our photos on the wall? And I'm like, well, yeah. We'll rip down all the marketing junk that's on the wall, which we've been told we have to have on the wall. We'll take it all down. You own the space. Do what you want with it. And that's a big shift. They're actually afraid to use the space, which is terrible on us, on me, right, on our organization, to make sure that we roll that out. And that does mean more, allowance of not having all these kind of rule book standards and guidelines. But it is a huge shift. But it goes back to wanting that entrepreneurial environment that Cisco and other firms need to have to be successful.
Steve, apart from giving away cars, what else did you do which broke the rules, and what was your approach?
Go ahead.
The question is, what else do we do to break the rules? Oh, yeah, sure. I think just enjoying what we do for a living. Feeding off other people. We're doing a small project right now, a new startup, and we have a passionate local leader. But we've all been to that place where that leader leaves, and then you're stuck with what they believed in. So stay with your core, be willing to be flexible. But on this project, I'm not sure if the leader is in sync with his team. So we opened up a Pinterest page and said, okay, everybody throw on what you think is visually exciting and why, and then we're going to have a roundtable next week and let everyone stand up and share why this picture was meaningful. Because I want to hear about, who's behind the leader. Because at the end of the day, it has to be about community. So that was last week.
John, how have you broken the rules?
I have to admit, our day-to-day operations team, who support each of my offices, they're very involved with the employees. If there's a question or if there's a problem, my people get on it within a day. They make sure that they get it solved as quickly as possible. So that's kind of interesting you were saying that. I remember that. But I don't think I've been that way for the last 5 years. In the last 5 years, we do ergonomic assessments immediately. We try to get highly involved with the employees and make sure that we're listening to them, and then they know that at least they got some attention. And I think once they know they're getting attention, they feel like, wow, that's great. we actually just hired a facilities person just for engineering. So her attention is just for the engineering group. So whatever needs they have, this person has to do it for them. Whether it's food or whether it's managing events or setting up things for them, that's all she does. She has nothing to do with anybody else but the engineers now.
We have one question from the front here. Do you want to take the last two questions?
As three companies who all are producing solutions that support mobility, either the underlying infrastructure or services that are intrinsically mobile, do your workplace strategies today extend into mobile work? Because what we've heard a lot about is the fantastic environments that you've built at great cost for these principal locations. But what is the point of view today and what's the rule book today with regards to how your employees work when they're beyond those amazing environments?
Well, I can start just briefly because Cisco sells mobility, obviously, so we have to sell it to our employees as well. But to me, that's our biggest, people talk about amenities, free food and drinks and all this kind of stuff. Our biggest amenity is working anywhere. We can literally work anywhere we want to work, and that's super freeing. Having said that, I am in the office every day because my 23,000 customers are in San Jose, and I need to be there. And it's not unusual for me to be in 7 buildings in a day talking to people that have sent me a flaming email, face to face, and that works really well. And it's important. So is my team. But we do sell mobility, and we have be honest, to share with you, 55, 58% show-up rate on a 23,000 employees at this campus, which is why we sold 8 buildings 6 months ago, right? And we're using the space the way we use it, the way we need it, and that's working well. I think people will always kind of vote with their feet if they're given the choice, right? And we have the choice. And then I think it's up to the managers and to that level to determine what is needed in the office. And, kind of a follow-up, these wonderful environments that we are creating, you might say, I get this all the time, well, if you just improve the environment, more people will show up at work. I don't believe that. And the reason I don't believe that is because I think people, if they have the choice, if I had a choice, I wouldn't drive an hour and a half one way to come to an office to get free food or to get a nice desk. I mean, it's not enough for me. I'm there for the people, and I'm there for my team, and I'm there for the great folks I work with and for the work that we're doing. And I think that's first. I'm not saying the office is definitely a piece of it, but it's a piece of that big pie, right? There's a lot of other things that bring people into work for that collaboration element. And we'll continue to do that. We'll continue to sell mobility, and I think we'll always continue to give people the choice.
And John, do you want to comment? Because you had a very different perspective about people coming together.
That's interesting because, we have a very large group of, that's called community managers who work out in the community. They work from home, usually. We don't have offices for them. But they're always outside anyways, working with local businesses. But the majority of the people, they come into the office. And they rely on each other. If you came to our sales floors, you'd be amazed of how fraternity it is, right? It's just, they just are fully excited. They're always high-fiving each other. They're just, they're just a part of the culture. And they enjoy the office, and they enjoy coming to the office to meet their employees and their friends in the office. So it's really important to them. Engineers are the same way for us. I think it's a part of the productivity. I think when you get siloed, you just aren't feeling integrated into the company. And so I'm not saying we don't allow mobility, but I think 99% of the people want to come into the office because that's the way the culture is. So it helps out a lot, I feel.
So we're kind of out of time for the panel, but we're going into a hangout session. So I'd like, as a kind of closing remark from each panelist, for you to say, what is it that we have to get right as a theme for us to discuss in the next few minutes in the hangout? If you had to kind of pick one thing that you want to solve in the next few years that will make a big difference to your organizations, what would that be? And then we'll go into a hangout. Who wants to kick off with that thought? One thought for the future. Should we start at this end, Chris?
Okay.
Done.
Well, I'll go back to shared ownership. I have to make sure that we're not so arrogant that we know the answers and that we can give people what they want. We have to make sure it's a two-way street and that it's very much having our employees involved in the choices they have in the workplace and it's not just the furniture solution, it's the services, it's the amenities, it's that whole picture. of what people want in the workplace. And I think we have to make sure we're listening and paying attention and truly delivering on that element.
Thank you.
Yeah, I second that. I think the notion of a one-size-fits-all kind of approach towards facilities is kind of the wrong approach these days. I think these are highly custom, these people are highly detailed, so they need to have basically the strategy or the underpinnings built into the space. So it's kind of the job of the facilities and the designers to really understand that. So I think, you know, we're looking at these spaces being very customized, highly tuned to the groups that are in there, and it may not fit the next group in there, but for that moment in time, for that group to really be successful, that's what they need, and I think we're responding to that a lot in our projects.
Thank you. John?
Wow. If I had to choose one thing, I think being in a tech company, forecasting is always one of the most difficult things for me, and trying to keep up with the growth pattern at this point, obviously. Trying to fulfill all the space, the growth, and designing it all out in a timely manner is quite difficult right now, especially with what real estate's going through right now. It's very difficult to find space right now, especially in the Bay Area.
Thank you. Steve?
Well, for us, we're still waiting for that final approval to be fully integrated with Lenovo. So we are listening and waiting for when that occurs. So we have an outsourced model, and we're meeting with all of our partners to make sure that we're doing the things that matter, all right? And so what was relevant 5 months ago for right-sizing our portfolio, that's not the focus today, because we know, and hopefully another month, that the demands and the asks and the strategies are going to come fast. So we have to be nimble and make sure that we're taking care of business, and that we're, again, keeping that seat at the table of how we support the business. So that's what's next for us.
Thank you. So a kind of fast workplace message, I think, was very clear. Can you join me in thanking our panel, which I think has been fantastic? Steve, John, Primo, Chris, thank you very much. Thank you. I'll pass back to Kate.